So what's gonna happen first is the biggest question I'm hearing right now in all my conversations that have anything to do with real estate. And it is, are prices going to come down or are interest rates gonna come down? Which happens first? Because I think they're tied together in this marketplace. And if you've watched any headlines over the last 2 years, 3 years, interest rates have been a huge conversation, but they especially are right now. As yesterday, when I filmed this, we just hit 7.5% interest rates. So in this video, what I'm gonna do is break down what my personal thoughts are with some data on, are prices going to come down or are interest rates going to come down, how those affect buyer affordability, which is the big conversation here, and how it might affect the housing market. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Stubbs. I'm a team leader and owner here at Onyx Homes. We make videos like this to give as much information to our clients and the public as possible. So if you find this valuable at all, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to get this in your email inbox, if you haven't already, go to ocmarketupdates.com and make sure you register. All right, so let's dive right in here. And I'm gonna start by explaining an example of buyer affordability, how interest rates affect it, or I should say how prices affect it versus how interest rates affect it. So in our example number one, I have $1 million house pulled up. So this is, let's pretend like we're a home buyer here and we're looking at $1 million home. This makes sense for buyers, sellers, investors, everybody. So the $1 million house we're looking at right now, let's say we were planning on putting 5% as our down payment, so 5% down. And at our current interest rates of 7.5%, our mortgage payment comes out to a principal and interest, which is, for this conversation, all that really matters. Principal and interest is gonna come out to $6,650, right around there. So if we were to buy this home, just the principal and interest payment is gonna be $6,650. Now, if we were to wait for interest rates to come down, if we were gonna say that this was gonna happen first, if interest rates came down to 5%, which for the people, we'll get more into this, that are saying interest rates are gonna come down, they're gonna be in that 4 to 6, probably closer to the 4 range. So let's say 5%. So if interest rates came down from 7.5 to 5%, that mortgage payment, principal and interest, would come down from $6,650 all the way down to $5,100. So that is how much of the difference going from 7.5 to 5% interest will make on your payment. It's huge. Now let's look at example number two. We're gonna take the same $1 million house, the same 5% down payment that gets us to $6,650 at a 7.5% rate, same exact payment. So how much would that home's price have to drop in order to get it to the same payment of $5,100? Well, based on the mortgage calculator here, which you can check out at our website, onyxhomes.com, in my opinion, I obviously am a little bit biased. I think it's probably the best mortgage calculator in the business. But anyway, to get that payment down to the same $5,100, the price of the home would have to drop to $770,000. So we would have to see over a 30% price drop in order for that home payment to be the same, which is a lot bigger difference than what's expected to happen with rates. It's just gonna take a little bit more time. So my question is anybody really expecting prices to come down by 35%? There have obviously been a ton of people saying the market's crashing or it's going to crash tomorrow for the last several years. Frankly, for the last 5 or 6, 7 years, there have been people saying that. So let's dive into what is gonna have to happen in each scenario for prices or rates to come down. So let's start with prices. I've got some stats over here on my computer, so I wanna make sure I'm accurate here. But the number one thing that's been driving our real estate economy for the last 3 years is inventory, or lack thereof. There's been so few homes on the market since the beginning of the pandemic that inventory never was able to recover. And the reason for that in 2020, 2021, and half of 2022 was because there was such a flood of buyer demand. Everybody wanted to buy a house, taking advantage of the rates. Home became way more important, and a lot of other reasons, those two probably being the most. The next part of this is more people right now are not putting their homes on the market because, one, there's not enough inventory for them to choose from. So if they were to sell their house, they would have to buy another one or rent, and there's not very much inventory for them to choose from. That's number one. Number two is that anybody that's owned a home when rates were low, they refinance. There's a tremendous amount of people that have below a 4 or 5, 3% interest rates. And for them to sell right now and buy something at a 7.5% interest rate, they'd have to really probably need to move in order to make that happen. So what I'm getting at here is for prices to come down in a meaningful way way, again, this is my opinion, is we have to see a ton of inventory come on the market. Because if you look at demand right now, demand is really low. With 7.5% interest rates, that shouldn't be very surprising. Even with 6 or 6.5% interest rates, it's still a very heavy seller's market with homes selling in less than a month on average, but it's because there's so few homes on the market and little buyer demand. So if there was a flood of homes that came to the market, buyer demand would still stay low, maybe a little bit higher, but that's when we would start to see price drops. And what I'm looking at is just not very many things are pointing towards a flood of homes coming to the market. There's an article by Investopedia that said that 42% of mortgages are equity rich. What does equity rich mean? It means that they have more than 50% equity in the house. So almost half of every house that has a mortgage on it has more than 50% equity. Now, the reason for me sharing this stat is in 2008, people were selling their houses because they were underwater, meaning their home was worth way less than what they owed on it. So they were selling it, giving it back, giving their keys back to the bank, and they were selling and taking a huge loss on the property. Now, if that were to happen now, if people were to need to sell because they could not make their mortgage payment, which I have another interesting stat here on that, these sellers would be selling at a huge equity position for the most part. Now, there's definitely people that paid at the peak of the market, put little down payment, and they might be in a bad situation with their homes, but that's not the vast majority of people. But on the note of people not being able to make their mortgage payment, our delinquency rate, which means the amount of people or percentage of people that have a mortgage that are late, is the lowest it's been in a really, really long time. And that number is just going down and down and down. So as of right now, there's nothing showing that that's going to start increasing dramatically, which again, that none of these things are pointing towards a ton of inventory coming on the market outside of just overall buyer affordability, which is a huge thing. And as we just looked at these payments to help buyer affordability, interest rates and price, interest rates make a huge impact. So what is pointing towards interest rates coming down? Well, if you look at everything going on in the economy, the Fed has said they're going to keep raising rates until inflation's under control. It's very likely that we're going to start to see that in the middle of 2024, which means they'll start pulling back rates in the middle of 2024, leading to rates being in that 4 to 6% range probably by the end of next year. So can prices hold on until rates drop? Or are we going to see rates drop with still having really low inventory on the market and having low rates, really increasing buyer demand, and that increases price? There's a lot of different things that can happen here, but from me and giving just everything that I look at in a national level and our local market, especially here in Orange County, I don't see very many things pointing towards a flood of homes coming to the market. There's very clear evidence that there's a really good chance interest rates are going to be pretty much significantly lower in the next, let's say, year or two. So our home value is going to come down second half of this year, maybe a little bit, but they've also gone up. We're back at prices near the peak of 2022. July, the median price point was $1,062,000, and July of this year, our median price point was $1,050,000. So we are very close on peak pricing even in this market right now. We'll see where it starts going, even with interest rates jumping up a little bit. But what is held to be very true is that demand in Orange County is there. There are people that are willing to pay these new prices, especially when you look at buyer affordability of the Bay Area, San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, and some of your other major metro areas where people are moving to Orange County. There's just a lot of buyer demand for Orange County, and I'm not seeing a huge argument for prices to come down by 35%. I think we're gonna see a correction in pricing a little bit lower, not a lot. I think it's gonna be more seasonality than anything, and we're gonna be waiting for interest rates to come down for the next year or so. That's my opinion. I'm curious what you think. If I'm missing some obvious signs on why there's gonna be so much inventory coming on the market, let me know in the comments down below. Shoot me an email, shoot me a DM, whatever you feel like reaching out to us on. I hope you find this valuable, see our insights. We talk to a lot of people, and I can tell you that when interest rates come down, it's not an if, it's when. There's gonna be a flood of buyers to the market, regardless of where price is at. So if you have any questions and you wanna talk about your specific situation, I'd recommend booking a strategy session with either myself or one of our local experts, and I would highly recommend getting prepared for whatever your next move might be, whether that be in 2 weeks or in 2 years. I think nowadays it helps to be prepared way ahead of time. So again, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure you're on our newsletter list at ocmarketupdates.com. I'll see you in the next video.